below normal rains. We got it. So yeah, I think that was the right moment to start the recording, I think. This is kind of the pre-trigger, basically. And here are kind of like low regret actions linked to this trigger. So this is where you can see on the bottom, the early actions, the first, where the dissemination of early warning messages happens. So, I see we have some annotation going on as well. So then we have the second trigger. That's the draft actual disaster relief emergency fund activation, the hard trigger. And that's reached in October, November, December, when rainfall is below normal, so observed rainfall, and vulnerability assessment analysis report by the Lesotho Vulnerability Assessment Committee, issued in January, projects 20% of the population in a drought-driven IPC phase 3 or 4. So this is the IPC prediction for the coming period. And if those requirements are met, then you trigger the second activation, and that's the unconditional cash transfers to 2,640 households. As you can see, there is the readiness activities that need to be done, the systems building with government, making sure that the forecast and the collaboration with the Lesotho Met Agency, with the Disaster Management Authority, the agreements are in place, staff and volunteers of the National Society of the Red Cross are capacitated, etc. These are all kind of the behind the scenes activities to ensure that you are ready to activate. There's also some stock, but because this is the actions are cash transfers, you don't need a lot of stock. And as you can see, the forecasts are the IPC and the Lesotho Meteorological Services. So this AAP has a total of 549,000 Swiss francs that reaches 5,140 people. Okay, can you go to the next slide? So on partnerships and collaborations, I also wanted to use an example for Southern Africa. And this is something that really aligns with the Anticipation Hub's ambitions. And we have set up a regional anticipatory action working group for Southern Africa. For example, there's also one for Eastern Africa in IGAD. But we have one for Southern Africa as well, which I wanted to show you as an example, where the Secretariat members are FAO, IFRC, and the World Food Programme. And we have a lot of members, member organization, including SADC, to jointly map out, for example, where we have anticipatory action activities. As you can see, Zimbabwe, Mozambique, and Malawi are kind of the clusters of where most AAPs are in place. And that's exactly where we also operationalize the roadmap that we've developed for Southern Africa to scale up anticipatory action, to have also interagency and potential cross-border anticipatory action to be rolled out. So we have a regional roadmap that we're translating to national roadmaps, starting with Zimbabwe and Mozambique. And there we really make sure that triggers are aligned, the anticipatory actions are aligned, and it's fully embedded with and owned by governments.
Yes, and Jörg just said it, the keyword scaling up anticipatory action. So what started with some pilots, 10 years ago, approximately, is now really ready to scale up. And the ambition here is to actually, reach more people with anticipatory action. I mean, we saw it in the first slides, the needs are there. We want to cover more geographic areas, and that means that, for example, we would, with our protocols that are in development, not only from the Red Cross and Red Crescent, but also from other partners, that we really try to aim, different geographic areas, that we reach more people with the protocols that are already in place, but also that anticipatory action can be applied to more types of hazards and contexts. What do we mean by that? We mean by that we started off with weather-related hazards. So I think we have lots of experience when we are talking about flood early actions or anticipatory action, cyclone, drought more and more. But I mean, there's lots of other hazards that can actually be forecasted one way or the other. If you think about epidemics that, of course, got lots of attention with COVID. If you think about locusts, if we think about sandstorms, so there's lots of hazards that might not immediately come to mind when we think about forecasting. But there is this opportunity that we want to further explore. And then more contexts also means that we want to look into compounding risks. So what happens if a hazard compounds with another one, especially when we are, for example, talking about conflict. So how can we do anticipatory action in a conflict setting? So these are the topics that keep us awake at night. And we really can only achieve this through learning, coordination, and partnerships. So something that we can do jointly, because there's I mean, of course, we need the scientists to help us with the forecasting. We need other agencies to learn from. So this, is what we believe the way to go. And also that we mainstream anticipatory action into disaster risk management and climate change adaptation. So that we don't have this narrow look on, okay, what is feasible with anticipatory action only, but really making sure that it fits into the bigger picture of disaster risk management. And of course, for that, we would like to invite you all to join the Anticipation Hub. The Anticipation Hub is the one-stop shop, or the platform to facilitate knowledge exchange, guidance, and advocacy around anticipatory action. And it's the place where we as practitioners go, where scientists go, and policymakers go to find their to find the answers to their questions when it comes to anticipatory action. And what you can find there, I want to give you a few examples, is, for example, different learning resources. So we have established an early action database, so you can see what kind of early actions have been already implemented for drought, for cyclones, for all the different hazards that we are already tackling. And who does them and how. So there's a bit, it's a database where you can basically also filter, okay, I need early actions for drought, and then you'll find them there. The same is true for the triggers. And then we also have a global project map where you can find the different projects that are ongoing. So if you are thinking about starting a new project in any country, you can have a look and see whether other people are already active there. We also have different working groups. So we have working groups on gender. We have a working group on Earth observation and anticipatory action. So if you feel free to join one of those working groups. This is really also the backbone of advancing in this new innovative technologies and bringing different minds together. And also sign up to the newsletter if you want to know more. And this is it. Thank you very much. And we are also happy to answer more questions. I think we're already at the top of the hour, but thank you. Do we have questions? Or those who want to run can also run, but for those who would like to stay and have a chat, you're welcome, and ask questions, meet us here or unmute.
Microphone for also the online participants.
Oh, okay, good. At the end, you talk a little bit about conflict, and I was wondering to what extent, those models for anticipatory action have been applied to conflict as the driving cause of humanitarian crisis. Totally understood that predicting how conflicts may escalate or evolve or where it's going to spread is way more uncertain than dealing with different types of natural hazard. But I'm just curious to see, if you are experiencing with that, or if you know of other actors were.
Yeah, thanks. I think that's a very interesting point always. For now, we have the conflict and fragile context kind of working group where also we discuss these questions. But for now, the IFRC at least, we're exploring how to ensure anticipatory actions for certain hazards to still be implementable in these fragile contexts, not necessarily to predict conflict. That's a whole discussion and another level of data analysis, and something you might not want to to do as a humanitarian organization at this point in time. But that's a different discussion. Do you want to supplement? Are there any actors in the room who want to? Yeah, Mathieu.
Maybe I can add something. So there's we get this. I'm Leonardo from the Center for Humanitarian Data. We get this question all the time. We try to actually review all the available models and provide recommendations in a publication that you can find on it's been published in October, and is about assessing the feasibility of conflict prediction for anticipatory action. It's really like where it can work, where it cannot work, and we provide recommendations specifically on sort of like how to we as humanitarians can influence and guide and steer the research on this topic. But yeah, it's really early days for doing sort of like anticipatory action specifically for conflict. One of the recommendations, for instance, is to invest more on not necessarily on the prediction of the conflict itself, but the impact of conflict, because still there's a window of opportunity, maybe without sort of like trying to predicting this, but you can find more details, and I can maybe put the link in the chat to the publication.
Next.
No, quickly reacting on the comment. My name is Mathieu de Stroper. I'm the anticipation lead for the Anticipation Hub in the Americas. What we are doing right now, and working groups publications, is above all analyzing how to do anticipation in crisis and conflict contexts. Yeah, predicting conflicts, we are as such is difficult, and nobody has really the mandate. Although in Colombia, for instance, we are building the mechanism for a complex crisis. Yeah, what we are predicting there, we take conflict-related indicators with models that are early warning based, or etc. For instance, of the Defensoría del Pueblo, the Human Rights Institute of Colombia, and then we have a list of other indicators which we call aggravating actors, which might be an epidemic, another hydrometeorological event, migration, internal displacement, social unrest in the region, or factors that are aggravating the armed conflict in certain areas of the country. And then, for instance, we analyze the capacity to deal with this increased conflict that is predicted or foreseen. Of course, this together with migration and dengue are non-hydrometeorological events that need a whole other thinking on how to predict it, what data to use, and how to give confidence to the data to enable financial mechanisms to give trust, money, and activate early actions for that event. So this is the big challenge. Over.
Hi, Justin from IFRC, just complimenting as well. I think this underscores the need, as Jörg mentioned earlier, about the need for a kind of a multi-stakeholder, partner-driven approach to this, because from IFRC and within the Red Cross, Red Crescent movement, it's a very delicate topic, because it's really politically challenging, for example, to say we think as the Red Cross, Red Crescent, that there's going to be a conflict in one of our member societies that puts that member society in a very awkward position vis-a-vis their government, of which they're often, legally a part as an auxiliary. So it may be easier in that sense for other players and other actors and partners to be in the lead, say, for conflict-related risks than for, say, the IFRC or one of our other members.
And I think Christelle was next.
Yeah, sorry, Cristel Santamaria, Disaster Risk Management from the Middle East and North Africa region. And actually just from the practical point of view, what we are doing is just to analyzing the context, that we have in each of the countries. And we are trying to find, the quick wins, especially with other partners, and how we can really deliver the information, especially to internal displacement population and so on. We have already some work done in Palestine, for example, in Yemen and Iraq. I don't remember. But the issue right now that we are using more like, okay, how we use the conflict setting, this is the context, and how we are going to add the other hazard and who is going to be best placed to be able to implement it. And also with who we need to partner, especially to keep the neutrality. In our case, for the national societies of Red Cross and Red Crescent, and then also taking all these consideration. Oh, be careful. Are you okay? Okay. It's very complex. And there is like some other initiative that is allowing us to really go further. But of course, it's a work that requires more work, more analysis, and have also a lot of advocacy work that have to be done at the different levels. So,
Thank you so much. And I'm Joel with the Pacific Disaster Center, and we're again a proud member of the Anticipation Hub, IFRC partner. And as a think tank based in Hawaii, but working globally, I think, and I wanted to comment, thank you for that. We'll be working a lot in Colombia this year, doing sub-national baseline assessments. So again, working with Inform, but going down to, again, sub-national levels. And I was thinking that as well, that, we put a lot of dots on the map on alerting, and that those data feed into the Go platform or the partners. But I do think your comments were well-founded. We want to partner more. That idea of also looking at a sub-national level where there may be places that could benefit from interventions or have high levels of resilience or low levels. So I think having that baseline data can help with anything. When we see a combination, it could be hydromet, the data we're getting flood alerting from NASA, and then you could see the slower moving onset. So that combinatory effect, I know it's hard, but we don't really get the luxury of like a nice email inbox of saying, well, that's my hydromet, that's my conflict, that's my COVID or other things. So I think I'm very excited, and we're really excited to be a part of all these initiatives. So thank you all. Learned a lot today.
Thank you very much, Ahmed from IGAD, which is an intergovernmental body from East Africa. I just would like to share an experience with that, just complementing on the conflict part. We have one center called CWARN, which is a conflict early warning center, which mainly works at a community level, understanding resource-based conflicts. So they do give clear warnings in terms of communal clashes based on resource competition, let's say grazing lands, water, and so on. So they don't call it anticipatory actions, but they do engage communities in dialogue and so on and so forth. So I think in that context or in that definition of conflicts, it's very much possible, particularly to put triggers and thresholds and so on, so that you can start dialogue and other means to prevent conflicts. They do also monitor social medias, particularly on hate speech and so on and so forth. So I think in that part of maybe in that set or in that definition of conflicts, it's very much possible. Thank you.
Sorry, Bulawanak, everyone. Vasiti from Fiji National Disaster Management Office. We had this workshop in Fiji just last couple of months, and I got a bit confused around, promoting anti-precipitation initiatives versus community resilience. There was so much talk around, making sure that funds are available when it does hit, or when you prepare communities that money is available for them to access. Now the question back is, where do you then encourage community to be resilient, that they can do this on their own first, even before government intervenes? So this is something, as that workshop ended, it was always on top of my head, trying to figure out how to, how do you then measure this? Having to work at the National Disaster Management Office, having to encourage this, you also compromise a bit of community resilience. And so just sitting here and listening to the conversations that's happening, it comes down to contextualization. how best it fits the case study in which you wish to apply it to. So from our side, now just sharing it with my colleague, we have our Met office have already forecasted Fiji to go on a drought for the next 6 months. Just yesterday, I received a message from our the only electrical company we have in Fiji that provides energy, that water levels reach at a very critical level, that there's a real need for Fiji to start saving or offering light so we can save. So just listening to these discussions, some of these prolonged hazards can actually move into this space and say, okay, these are some of the interventions that we could do. So it was sharing that lessons learned from when it was first introduced in the Pacific, how we're going to contextualize it, looking at how much investment has gone into community resilience, looking at the different mechanisms that are already in place to activate different actions that needs to be taken by government, and then adopting a new concept that's now being brought in. But looking at all this and how best you can, make it yours, if I put it that way. So that's something I also wanted to raise from the experience when this was introduced to us 2 months ago. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot for that comment from Fiji Disaster Management Authority. I think indeed it really depends on your context and how you contextualize it. That's something I think you've already understood based off your comment as well. With the anticipatory action plans, basically, this is to really bridge that gap in between the preparedness, between what you can now forecast as specific impacts, and early response. And it's really designed in a way, I believe, that it should protect those community resilience and development gains. And this really means that you implement anticipatory action for a extreme humanitarian event, basically. So what we also use as a measure is for hydrometeorological events, the impact should be at least a 1 in 5 year return period event, which has a substantial impact on these most vulnerable communities. And this is where I think the most benefit is to be have of anticipatory action. So by no means it's overlapping or trying to make communities more reliant on let's say government assistance or humanitarian aid. This should always be considered and taken into consideration when you develop an AAP in specific context. Perhaps also my colleagues from the Anticipation Hub, if you have ideas about this, supplement. I see a very enthusiastic hand in the back. So please, Kara, go ahead.
Always very enthusiastic. So I think I just want to complement what Jörg mentioned, and very appreciative of the question from our colleagues from Fiji. There is obviously also within the Red Cross system quite strong community resilience, community-based disaster risk reduction already happening. We have been using also early warning system for preparedness. So at the Anticipation Hub, we are now working on working with several organizations who want to lead a potentially working group on locally led anticipatory action. And some of the elements that we want to see is to actually marry the tool. So we now have, for example, alerting that can really reach the household level, but instead of just alerting for preparedness, like we do, having that information of average risk or for preparedness for response, we need to use basically the same methodology, such as impact-based forecasting, that predictive knowledge to actually reach households. So even if organizations cannot take care of everything, and I think this is pretty much normally the case, that even if IFRC together with national societies are covering X number of households, there's still more households that are not being reached. So if we can marry the tools between community early warning, alerting, and impact-based forecasting, we may be able to support more households to do things on their own. So this is under exploration, and I will give you my name card. I'll be happy to follow up a discussion with you. Is it time for my announcement now?
Yeah, if you want to go ahead. If no one else has any other questions for now, otherwise we're always available to have a discussion after or reach out to us directly. There were some questions in the chat, but I think also there, Kara just answered the locally led element. I think we can go ahead to the closing remarks by Kara.
No, not really a closing remark, but I see I'm very enthusiastic that there are a lot of questions, there are a lot of interest on anticipatory action. We have still many sessions that we are organizing or supporting, and would like to bring your attention also, if you want to know the breadth and the reach of anticipatory action worldwide, please come join the session on the report launch of the Anticipatory Action Global Overview 2022. We hope that's going to be the first edition of many. And I'm also very pleased that we will be joined by Dr. Rianti Jalante from the ASEAN Secretariat, and Dr. Ahmed also from ICPAC. And if you are interested in pitching collaboration ideas and to know also about all our different working groups, come tomorrow at 11 until 12:30. There's a session on collaboration, and we will welcome also pitches and suggestions on whether it's working group, whether it's exchange, and other learning activities that we could support. We will be happy to hear from you. So all are welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Kara. And with this, I would then also close the session. Thank you, everybody, for joining, and see you in the next days.